Still, the truck driver said nothing. He simply shifted his stance, a movement so subtle that most people wouldn't have noticed. But in his mind, everything was already mapped out. The positions of each biker, the way their weight was distributed, who would move first, who would hesitate. It was almost instinctual, drilled into him from years of experience. Behind him, an older vendor who had been watching the scene unfold wiped his hands nervously on his apron. He had seen enough in his years to recognize when things were about to go bad. "Maybe you boys should leave him alone," the vendor suggested carefully. "Not everyone is what they seem." The bearded biker scoffed. "Oh yeah? And what's he supposed to be? Some kind of secret agent?" The others laughed, their tension easing just a bit. They were enjoying this, dragging things out, playing with their supposed victim. But the vendor wasn't laughing. He had seen something in the truck driver's eyes, something dangerous, controlled like a storm waiting for the right moment to break. He wasn't a man avoiding trouble because he was scared. No, he was a man holding back because he knew exactly what he was capable of. And if these bikers kept pushing, they were about to find out. The bearded biker's smirk faded just a little as he stared at the truck driver, waiting for some kind of reaction. But the man still didn't flinch. He just stood there, unmoving, his eyes locked onto the group in front of him. There was no anger in his expression, no fear, just a quiet patience, like someone waiting for a storm to pass. One of the bikers shifted uneasily, sensing something was off. "Man, let's just go," he muttered under his breath. But the bearded one wasn't ready to let it go. His pride was on the line now. He had started this, and there was no way he was backing down in front of an audience. "You think you're better than us?" he challenged, stepping even closer. His breath smelled of cheap beer and cigarettes as he jabbed a finger into the truck driver's chest. "Say something, old man." The truck driver finally moved, tilting his head just slightly, his gaze still steady. "I don't want trouble," he said, his voice calm, controlled. "But you're about to find it." The words should have been a warning, but the bikers took it as a challenge. The taller one with the tattoos scoffed and cracked his knuckles, while another shifted his weight, preparing for something they thought would be quick and easy. What they didn't realize was that the market had gone silent. The vendors, the shoppers, everyone had stopped what they were doing. Some were frozen in place, others backing away. They didn't know exactly why, but they could feel it in the air. Something was about to happen. And in that moment, as the bearded biker pulled back his fist, ready to strike, the truck driver's muscles tensed ever so slightly. The next few seconds would change everything. The bearded biker's fist shot forward, fast and reckless, aiming straight for the truck driver's jaw. But in a blink of an eye, something unexpected happened. The truck driver didn't step back. He didn't flinch. Instead, with a speed that shouldn't have been possible for a man his size, he shifted just enough for the punch to miss by inches. The biker's momentum carried him forward, throwing him slightly off balance. And that's when it happened. The truck, well, the man finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying weight. "Didn't think I'd see you again." The bikers exchanged confused glances. This wasn't part of their plan. Whatever was happening now was something much bigger than they had expected. And for the first time, they started to wonder if they had just walked into something way over their heads. Driver's hand moved, just one hand. He caught the biker's wrist in midair, stopping him completely. The force should have been enough to break free, but it was like hitting a steel beam. The biker's eyes widened, a flicker of something creeping into them. Confusion, maybe even fear. The market crowd barely had time to react when a sharp whistle cut through the tension. The sound came from behind the bikers. A new presence had arrived, one that hadn't been part of the scene until now. A man stood at the edge of the parking lot, arms crossed over his chest. He wore a clean leather jacket, not like the ragged ones the bikers had on. His stance was relaxed, but there was something about him that made even the loudest of the group go quiet. He wasn't just another onlooker. The truck driver's grip loosened slightly and his eyes locked onto the newcomer. Recognition flashed in them, but he said nothing. The man in the leather jacket took a few slow steps forward, his gaze shifting from the bikers to the truck driver. The air felt heavier now, charged with something unspoken. The bearded biker yanked his arm back, rubbing his wrist where the truck driver had gripped it. His confidence had taken a hit, but he wasn't ready to admit it yet. "Who's this guy?" he muttered under his breath, glancing at the man in the clean leather jacket. The truck driver, still calm, still unmoved, finally spoke again. "Didn't expect to see you here, Carter." The man in the jacket smirked, but his eyes stayed sharp. "Neither did I." He turned his attention to the bikers, giving them a slow once-over. "You boys really know how to pick your battles, huh?" Something about the way he said it made the group uneasy. The bearded biker scoffed, trying to reclaim his bravado. "What, you've here to protect your old buddy? Didn't know truck drivers have bodyguards." Carter chuckled, shaking his head. "You don't get it, do you?" He turned to the truck driver. "They don't know who you are." The truck driver sighed, rolling his shoulders like a man loosening up after a long rest. "Didn't plan on them finding out." The taller biker with the tattoos took a step forward. Who is he? Carter's smirk faded, his tone turning serious. He's the reason a lot of men like you never made it back from places you've never even heard of. You let that sink in. Retired Delta Force. And from what I remember, not the kind of guy you want to push. The biker's expression shifted, their confidence cracking. The bearded one swallowed hard, his mind racing. This wasn't just some trucker. This was a man who had seen things, done things he didn't need to brag about. And then the final twist hit. Carter took one last step forward and lowered his voice. The only reason you're still standing is because he's retired. If this was 10 years ago, well, let's just say you wouldn't have gotten a warning. The bikers didn't need to hear more. One by one, they stepped back, suddenly eager to put distance between themselves and the man they had mocked just minutes ago. The bearded one forced a laugh, pretending he wasn't shaken. Yow. Well, we were just messing around. The truck driver met his gaze, unblinking. Sure you were. Without another word, the bikers turned and walked away, their pace just a little too quick. The market, silent for so long, slowly returned to life as people whispered among themselves. The truck driver exhaled and reached for his crate, ready to get back to work as if nothing had happened. Carter watched him for a moment before shaking his head with a grin. Still the same, huh? The truck driver smirked, adjusting his cap. Not everything changes. But as Carter walked away, one thing was clear. Some legends don't need to be told. They just need to be left alone. The market slowly returned to its usual rhythm, but the energy had shifted. People stole glances at the truck driver, now seeing him in a different light. He didn't acknowledge the stares, didn't act like anything out of the ordinary had happened. He just went back to stacking his crates like any other day. Carter lingered for a moment before giving a small nod and walking off, disappearing into the crowd. The truck driver watched him go, a ghost from his past that had briefly stepped into his present. It reminded him of who he used to be, who he still was deep down. But that life was behind him now. He had made his choice. An older vendor walked up, handing him a bottle of water. You handled that well, he said with a knowing smile. The truck driver simply took a sip, adjusting his cap. Some fights aren't worth it. And with that, he got back to work.